into the MBDA COVID-19 programming. You know, throughout our team with the Bach Outreach Center, Dr. Changju, Ethan Penha, and Marlon Watson, we've been delivering content as well as possible given the circumstance. And we hope to drive value in the presentations that we provide to you. Because we know your time is limited. Cybersecurity risk is increasing, driven by global connectivity and usage of your cloud-based services. You know, we're storing sensitive data and personal information for our businesses and our clients. Widespread poor configuration of your cloud services paired with increasingly sophisticated cyber criminals means the risk that your business suffers from a successful cyber attack or data breach is on the rise. You know, gone are the days of when we just had a simple firewall or antivirus software. We're working at home, we're working on the road, we're working on mobile devices. And as business leaders, we can no longer leave this information security to just, you know, the larger organizations like banking, which even they have problems with this. Cyber threats can come from any level in your organization. So we must do what we can to educate ourselves. You must educate your staff about simple scams like phishing and more sophisticated cybersecurity attacks like ransomware. As a small business, you may not have an IT department, and so that's why I'm very proud and humbled to introduce JAB Consultants, our own MBDA member here today, who will guide us through a three-part, and this is the first of three sessions that we will be provided with the information that you need to know in order to build your own internal policies and create some more safety for your company and your clients' data. And we'll learn in the course of these three, the people who do complete all three in these sessions will receive a certification that we will deliver of accomplishment, which you can then add to your policies and your in-house policy and procedure manual, as well as deliver to outwardly to your customers and to your insurance providers who may look favorably upon it. So with that, I'm proud to introduce JAB Consultants. Julian Barton, please take it away.
Thanks, Roxanne, for that warm introduction. As Roxanne mentioned, the cyber landscape is changing on a daily basis. Targeted small businesses are just as important to keep their enterprise safe and secure. This will be a very interactive and informative series. Today, we're starting with a cybersecurity overview and some government recommended frameworks that you can implement on your enterprise and in your network to inform all of your employees on how to be safe. I know COVID caught us all by surprise and rushed us to work in a different setting than we're used to. So these recommendations and these policies and these risks that I will cover in this first series will be extremely helpful in order to help you move forward in your security posture in this remote environment. And I'm going to share my screen now. So just as a friendly reminder, if you can place your phones on mute and turn your cameras off, that will help the smooth transmission.
And Julian, before we really get started, can you give us a little bit about your background and training so that our audience can be more aware of where you come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in IT for around 7 years now. I have my master's degree in information security systems. In my job, I support a lot of big government agencies such as Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Education. And as you know, those are all agencies that contain tons of information and PII that is very sensitive. And once you lose that data, you can never get it back. So once someone gets your information, you're at risk at all times. So protecting your information and protecting different aspects of it is very important. I've been on great teams that went in and implemented great security recommendations and implementing the solutions as well. One of our biggest clients is FEMA. And every time there's a natural disaster, you get a pop-up on your phone. My team was one of the teams that developed the alerts that you get automatically through Apple on any device where you get the loud alarm sound. That's an example of some of the missions that I've worked on. So when we released to those tragic areas when there's a natural disaster, you have to make sure all the mobile devices are secure, making sure that those networks are up and running at all times, and having 2 or 3 recovery alleys in case something goes down or something does not work. So I have a great time explaining and sharing my knowledge with other small businesses, especially, and then also friends and family, just to keep everyone aware and safe. So this is just an overview of what the 3-step series looks like. So for series 1, it will be a cybersecurity overview with recommendations on how to keep your enterprise safe, recommendations on how to avoid certain scams, and recommendations on how to keep your employees aware. Phase 2 will go in a deeper dive of detecting threats and actually responding once you realize that you have a threat or an ongoing problem on your enterprise. And series 3 will cover when a cyber attack is in action and you're doing everything you can to prevent it and stop it. And then once it's in action and you caught it and you stopped it, you want to implement a recovery plan to get back to business as soon as possible. So today we will go over what is cybersecurity, the importance of cybersecurity awareness, the types of cybersecurity, NIST government frameworks, the SHIELD Act, top type of cyber attacks for small businesses, protecting the enterprise, and government contractor requirements. So series 1, I want to make sure that I'm giving you an in-depth overview of what cybersecurity is today and some factors that are critical in the current COVID-19 environment. This session will highlight a lot of good practices, some warnings, some heads ups, and some good recommended government frameworks that are not mandatory, but are highly recommended for implement across your enterprise. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And as you know, throughout these series, you will have polls that come up. So you should have an interactive way to select an answer on the poll. And you will get a 3-second countdown and the poll will pop up and you will have around 20 seconds to answer the question. And at that time, we will check the chat for any Q&A that we have at the time. And I will address the poll. So cybersecurity is the practice of defending computer servers, mobile devices, electronic systems, networks, data from malicious attacks. A big reason for cybersecurity training is employees shifting from office to working remotely without the proper cybersecurity awareness training in order to continue business as usual. A lot of companies had to take shortcuts in order to keep interoperability and make money, which we all know. And during times of crisis, risks rise. Cybersecurity is protection of computer systems and networks from theft, damage, or hardware harm that can ruin your business. Did you know that since COVID-19, the FBI have reported over 300 increased report in cybercrime? That is a tremendous jump and a tremendous statistic to keep in mind as you are in this COVID environment when you have a lot of e-commerce businesses at risk, you have your kids working from home, you're at risk as well in many different avenues. They're also trying to steal your SBA loan. They're trying to get any kind of access that they can about you and your personal information, which is critical for having a good cyber practice. And some of the things that fall under the cybersecurity umbrella that's very important is sensitive data, PII, mobile device data, financial information, and intellectual property. Understanding the importance of protecting your PII is absolutely critical because, as I stated, once it's out there, people can replicate your identity, open credit card accounts, get a car, get loans. It's very important and it can really damage you. So we want to keep your integrity of your computer and your connected systems very safe from cyber attacks. And in this series, you will get some recommendations to do so. So as we jump into some of the top type of cyber attacks and risk amongst small businesses, as you see, a few are popping up, and they're phishing, malware attacks, and insider threats. These are some of the top threats that all businesses face, but these are some of the ones that attack the small businesses the most. The average time to identify a breach in 2019 was 7 months. That is someone stealing information and having access to private information for 7 months. That's more than half of the year. And if you're a successful business or not, that's still a lot of information that is being filtered through that you have no knowledge of. Hackers are attacking every 39 seconds. That's more than 2,000 times a day. Every business is guaranteed at least 5 attempts of some type of attack on a daily basis. That is so critical for why cybersecurity is important, and you must have the awareness across your enterprise. Some of the top reasons small businesses are vulnerable are because a lot of people use a lot of old passwords or the same passwords for all their accounts. They don't have an outside IT consultant or shadow IT to help them implement solutions and recommendations. They do not have layers of cybersecurity. That isn't a lot for an IT manager to assess, let alone a small business owner who is already preoccupied with solving other problems. Therefore, many small businesses have one-dimensional cybersecurity strategy that is easy to bypass. So the first type of attack we're going to go into depth about is phishing. Phishing emails include fake notifications from banks, e-payment systems, email providers, social networks, online games, and more. These are the emails that use fake identification to get you to click on a link or download a file that leads you to a false location. This is an easy way, and you get them every day to your work email and to your personal email. 48% of malicious emails are attached in Office files. So they also contain other problems such as malware, viruses, worms. All of those downloadable files also are very much so come from these phishing attacks. And these attacks are to gain sensitive and confidential information about you, where you are, your IP address, your login information, and they also have software running in the background, as a lot of these attacks are automated. 93% of social attacks were phishing related, and that's just simply using the manipulation of people to click on websites that they should not be clicking or going to. And this is an example on the screen of what a fake email address looks like in the first markup. The no reply at AOL.com, that lets you know that it's an automated attack and you should not click, let alone open it if you can. Also, an example is at Bach, you could have an employee email you and put a simple dot in the email to change what the email really stands for. So it could be J. Burton versus Julian Burton at Bach, and you would think that it's me because you're used to seeing my name pop up, but it could be that simple of a change in the to department that lets you divulge information that is very serious to your organization. Did you know that 43% of cyber attacks target small businesses and 62% experience phishing and social engineering attacks? That is a lot of attempts to get you to click on something that you shouldn't, either because you're in a rush and trying to click your email, or you think it's from someone you know. This is another example with more details on what a cyber attack, a phishing attack looks like by the information located in the email. So as you can see, I'm gonna start at number 3. There's a link that takes you to cancel requests immediately that is not a real website. Just simply hovering over some of the links will show you the outer link that will take you to, and you should realize that it's a fake email. Also, the information located in there, such as the message. We've received instruction to delete your account within 24 hours and your account will be lost. Also, if you have no idea what it's talking about, 9 times out of 10, it is fake, and it's something you should take your time on before clicking, accessing, or giving your information to. And lastly, 4, it's a do not reply message, meaning it's an automated bot going to try to get your information so they can have leverage and or get money out of the situation. And this is the first poll.
Five seconds to respond. We'll give people a little bit more time.
So we have 7 votes so far. This is also a chance to ask any questions that if you have any, you could drop them in the chat. Perfect. So it looks like we got a pretty good amount of feedback. 57% of you got the correct answer. 14% of you chose hacker. 14% chose virus. And 14% chose worm. The correct answer is spam. And it's spam is because it's an unsolicited commercial email. So it may not contain a worm, a virus, or someone intending to get malicious information or get information out of you. It's just a simple email that is for marketing and to generate sales for that organization. It's good to know these definitions, to know what you're referencing, and sometimes the attacks will even have the word in the email.
Julian, I know sometimes our some of our colleague institutions do hackathons. And these are not malicious events where lots of people get together. The hackathon is a little bit different than a hacker, right?
Right, yes. So a hackathon is more so of planned hacks to see how stable your network is to prevent hacks from happening that are real. So a hackathon is pretty much you hire a team to come in and try to hack your network and get your employees to do something that gives them access to your network.
And sometimes we have hackathons to solve a problem. So we may have a real problem with, maybe water in our community. And so we may have a hackathon to try to come up with a solution to a problem. So sometimes those are also called hackathons.
Definitely, especially with the new and trending cyber risks that are coming up and upcoming. Sometimes you have to have a hackathon just to understand the landscape of what's happening. It's so many new type of attacks happening on a daily basis. Sometimes those teams are ran just to try to identify them. But that's a very good point, Roxanne. Are there any other questions? All right, this is a short video about phishing attacks.
Okay, let's talk about phishing. No, not that phishing. Phishing is a kind of online scam. You know, you're contacted by a person or company, often through email, regarding something important. You click on a link and are then asked to give away valuable information, like a password or bank account number. But nobody ever falls for this, right? Wrong. If phishing scams didn't work, they wouldn't exist. But how come they work so well? 1. We love to click, and the internet was made for clicking. It's that simple. Click, 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 clickety, click. 2. Our smart brain loves to take shortcuts and predict things. Phishing scams use lookalike web and email addresses that are spelled wrong, and we still get fooled. 3. We are hardwired to respond to emotions: curiosity, trust, fear, desire, generosity. 4. Urgency. Phishing scams always prompt us to act fast. What do these 4 points all have in common? They can cause an automatic reaction, bypassing our critical thinking. Time to put phishing scams under the microscope. Favorite channels: email, phone call, SMS. Common traits: unexpected, asking to bypass a usual process, trying to trigger an emotion. Most efficient when we are tired, stressed, or conversely, very happy. Believe it or not, we are more likely to be fooled right before a vacation or after receiving really good news. If faced with what could be a phishing attempt, stop, then look at it again more closely for details. Do a double verification by searching online for information on the company that has contacted you or telephoning the person that has just emailed you. With this knowledge, you are now more prepared to escape phishing. No, not that phishing.
So that's a,
Okay, let's talk.
sorry. So that's a good little short informational video on phishing. It gives you examples. It tells you when you're vulnerable. I like to watch these, at least once a quarter just to get a good fresh memory. So some of the times the most basic things are what you forget to do. And it's good practice just to keep that hygiene exercise for any potential threats. So when an enterprise employees are cybersecurity aware, it gives them a first level of security. Employees are generally the first level of risk on any enterprise. And as small as that is, it sounds very much so bad because employees half the time are not aware of any type of threat. They don't have any idea of phishing. They don't have any knowledge because they think they're secure with their IT team or their managed service provider. Yes, a lot of software and platform have built-in security, but that's only another layer. You have to have several layers of security, and people are the first. So through cybersecurity awareness training, users are brought up to speed on an organization's IT security procedures, policies, and best practices. These education modules not only help ensure your staff is aware, but these principles are built in your enterprise to be understood. It's all about educating your colleagues and employees to understand the risks and threats of the ever-evolving cyber world. Specifically, about 85% of workers lack knowledge around cybersecurity and data privacy. A comprehensive security awareness program sets clear cybersecurity expectations for all employees and educates users about how to recognize attack vectors and help prevent cyber-related incidents. Like I said, employees are the first line of defense, and you want to make sure your team is aware. A fun fact, 95% of cybersecurity breaches are due to human error. Cyber criminals and hackers will infiltrate your company through its weakest link, which is almost never the IT department. We're going to go over the top five types of cybersecurity that's critical to keep your enterprise safe. Critical infrastructure security, application security, network security, cloud security, and last but not least, Internet of Things. Critical infrastructure is the body of systems, networks, and assets that are essential to keep their continued operation, such as routers, databases, phones, computers, the things that we take for granted that we think are supposed to just work are a part of that physical infrastructure landscape. All of these critical infrastructure landscape items are critical in the connections and have interdependencies between the infrastructure elements in sectors that may damage, disrupt, destruct to one infrastructure that can cause cascading effects to another, such as if your server goes down in BOC, no one can access any of the information, any of the data, And that is one of the critical infrastructure elements you need to protect. If you're at home, your router, it disconnects. You can't connect to the internet with your Wi-Fi. That means you have to use your data. If you're not using your data or don't have a data plan for your kid to go to school, your kid has to go somewhere else to work because he doesn't have access to the internet. So all of these are the physical aspects that needs to be well maintained and protected in order to keep everything going as normal. Here's another poll.
I'm going to leave this up for 30 seconds.
Perfect. Thanks, John.
Ten seconds, everybody. 2, 1, and done. Sharing the results.
So it looks like we did a lot better on that one. We got 88% with the correct answer. 2 people voted for security threat. So a firewall is essentially a wall around your house or a gate around your house to keep the dogs, the rodents, the animals out of your yard. So this is the same aspect for your network. It's a layer of protection. The next type of security we're going to talk about is application security. And it's the process of developing, adding, and testing features within applications to prevent security vulnerabilities against threats such as unauthorized access or modification. Different types of application security features include authentication, authorization, encryption, logging, and application security testing. Developers are now coding applications to reduce the security vulnerabilities, such as software as a service. Application security is important because today's applications are often available over various networks and connected to the cloud, which increases vulnerabilities of security threats and breaches because of all the transmissions. Majority of the time, the cloud is also shared with other organizations, which leave all of that information at risk if there's any type of malfunction or error at the facility where that cloud database is being stored. An application such as a banking app having two-factor authentication built within it is an example of application security. So once you go to log on to your app, you get a text or the actual security question so that you can gain further access into the application. Those are examples of application security that you can have on your enterprise if they're wanting to access certain data. Access management and user identity management is critical in applications as you move to this remote workforce. Next, we're going to discuss network security. And it's the practice of preventing and protecting against unauthorized intrusion into corporate networks. Network security is a set of policies and routine procedure implemented by the networking system to shield their network from unauthorized access, denial of computer service, or any type of interruption of running. Network security is important for home networks as well as business networks. Most homes with high-speed internet connections have 1 or 2 wireless routers, which could be exploited if not properly secured. A solid network security system helps reduce the risk of data loss, theft, and sabotage. Some tips to increase your network security: you can increase your Wi-Fi security by activating network encryption. I personally have Xfinity. Xfinity comes with an app that you can see everything happening within your home. I can go in and change my IP address. I can create a unique Wi-Fi name. I can create a unique Wi-Fi password. These are simple steps that can be followed to make your network more secure. If you do these things and you place your router in the right place, in the right location in your home, someone walking by your house can't access your Wi-Fi network by simply walking by. So you want to have your Wi-Fi routers placed in places that only you can use them within your home, or places that you are at during your home. So when you have company, having good practices like having a locked Wi-Fi password is critical, because no one can access it without the password. So these are little examples of how working from home, having your kids work from home, being forced to work from home, all these steps can play into the bigger picture of protecting your enterprise. And as a philosophy, network security can be used as endpoint security, which focus on individual devices. So when I have company and my friend connects and his Apple Watch connects along with his iPhone and his laptop and MacBook, I can see all of those, and I can also take all of them off of the network if they join without my authority. And you can do the same through your cable provider. 9 times out of 10, they now have apps to where you can control this from your phone. This even goes to your kid. If they're browsing on websites that you block, they're on YouTube looking at things that you did not approve, that device can be completely internetless if you take them off their network emissions. And these are some different types of network security types, such as email security, antivirus and anti-malware, access control, mobile security, firewalls, and the VPN. These are all built to protect our smart devices from any of the software installed that can harm our systems or completely destroy them. And we have another poll. Remember, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat and we will address them.
Again, everybody, you have 30 seconds. And just like to remind anybody, if you have any questions that you want to ask, please put them in the group chat, and then we will address them during the Q&A session. We have 12 people. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Polling has ended. Here are the results.
Excellent. We got 94%. We got 1 for reliability. That is understandable as a choice, reliability, but security is the answer, because if you have an unauthorized person roaming in your house, that is a security issue. You have to worry about everything that's there. You have to worry about your kids. You have to worry about your wallet. There's many different aspects that you have to worry about. So you have to treat the network as the same as your house. So you don't want anybody in your house that you did not approve. This next security, which is cloud security, is one of the most up and coming securities that we must all pay attention to. As you see in this graphic, every device that you have now connects to the cloud in some way, shape, or form. Your computer, your router, your laptop, your smartwatch, your car, your microwave, everything now has that. And cloud computing centralizes application data and security. So it has all information that are essential to how the world is ran right now. Cloud-based business networks consist of numerous devices and endpoints that can be difficult to manage when dealing with shadow IT or bring your own device. Bring your own device is you working from your personal phone to complete your job. So if your company says, hey, it's okay, use your phone to do your work, or use your personal laptop to do your work, that is a tremendous risk to everyone that is connected to this cloud source, to this database that could be in Montana and you're in New York. This is huge. Managing these entities can centrally enhances traffic analysis and web filtering, streamlines the monitoring of network events, and results in fewer software and policy updates. That's because the cloud normally updates as a whole and not device by device. So if you don't have the proper protocol set and the proper settings set within your device, it will not even update to its latest version. And another factor is the cloud security. Having the latest version is important because the latest version includes patching from previous mishaps of the last batch or the last release. Cloud data security becomes increasingly important as we move our devices to data centers, we move our business processes, all more to cloud now that we move into remote. We are forced to do that because the databases that are connected and the servers that are connected at your office are not at your home. So that's where having the identity and access management is so crucial to these devices, so that you can only access so much of the enterprise's database that you're not putting the company at risk if you are compromised. Ensuring quality cloud data security is achieved through a comprehensive security policy and organizational culture of security and security cloud solutions. Last but not least, Internet of Things. Internet of Things is any smart device that has internet capabilities, whether it's a surveillance camera, a door controller, a speaker, a refrigerator. Most of these devices offer non-proprietary and are open that allow you to connect and integrate with other devices, such as your phone connected to your Bluetooth speaker, your watch connecting to your phone, you being able to control your air, your thermometer through your thermostat. All of these things are now risk that we live on the day-to-day basis that we may overlook. If a hacker gets into any of those, they now have access to all of the devices that connect to that one device. So if you control your air through your thermometer and your thermometer is compromised, they now, depending on how long they've been working and what they're trying to achieve, can have access to your phone. So it's a snowball effect, and it's critical that we remember these things as we make decisions on a day-to-day basis. This is where the true value of the IoT comes in. Namely, name the devices generate, which can be mined and analyzed to provide deep insight and intelligence. So it's good to have a good library and identity of your network by going in and customizing the device names that you know you use on a daily basis and or are connected by default. All these can be done by a third-party app, or you can use your internet provider's apps, and they normally have now, if I'm not mistaken, about 75% of them now have the ability to name the device. So for instance, for me, I have my phone labeled as Jay's iPhone, my MacBook, Jay's MacBook. And if you see a random name or number or letters of an unidentified device and it's not, and you have no idea what it is, that is a huge risk. So from this moment forward, once you get access to this, it's a good practice to go in and see what's all connected to your network so that you can name these devices and automatically know when someone or something connects. And if it's a new device, it's fine. Just go in and change the name so that you know for future reference. A fun fact is, I'm sure we all know this, but the IoT market is due to reach 31 billion connected devices this year. That is 4 to 5 smart devices per human. It will reach 75 billion by 2025. That's that many more risk that we are all going to experience by simply having a smart device. And these cyber practices are going to change each year or evolve each year as new threats arrive. So we've already spoke about phishing attacks. Now we're going to address malware attacks, which is the second most common type of attack for a small business. But we have a poll before we get there. Have about 20 more seconds.
Five seconds.
Okay, good. So we can share those results. So the most popular answer was phishing, soliciting, DOS attack, and stalking. So no one voted stalking. But the correct answer is actually DOS attack. A DOS attack is a denial of service attack which completely shuts down your operations from every device and has no internet connectivity, which makes it a class of its own because it can shut down your complete operating system once it's ran. This is a good topic to know, and I will distribute with you when I share the presentation of the definitions of each one of these things or each one of these names that are listed in these questions. But just knowing the simple definitions can save you a lot of time and trouble by understanding what the actual threat is. And the next attack we're going to talk about is malware attack. Malware is a broader term for several types of malicious codes created by cyber criminals that prey on online users. Today, the cyber attacks have become more common and frequent, targeting small and large organizations. Some of the common signs of malware infections are slowing down of your computer, programs, and internet connection. Suddenly, your screen is bombarded with pop-ups and unwanted advertisement. Redirection to new websites while trying to access a different website, and programs start running automatically. These are not the only type of warnings, but these are some common signs that you see when you have a malware attack. And this is when an attack is installed on your device without knowledge. So if you're at the airport, you connect to the internet at the airport, someone infiltrated the airport's network, meaning they can access whoever is on the network. That means they can install things on your device that you don't even know in hidden folders or create a folder, steal your pictures. These are a lot of attacks that celebrities experience and get their pictures leaked and things of that sort. And some more types of malware include spyware, ransomware, and Trojan horses. This is a graphic of what actually happens step by step in a malware attack. So you receive a spam message with a link to a malicious website, which falls under phishing. You click on the link. The malicious website loads something in the background in code that you have no idea. That's why it's not important. That's why it's important not to click these links that you do not know where the destination is, because some of these clicks is actually downloading information and downloading viruses onto your computer to steal your information. So once the malicious website loads, and it shows the vulnerabilities on your computer, so they can run a test in the background once you click that link to see their entry points. The next step is a coding window called PowerShell, where they can go in and code while they have access to your device. The coding platform PowerShell then downloads and executes a script from the command and control server. So now they're seeing everything that's running on your operating system and know exactly how to beat that. They can take this simple click and break down your entire computer and know exactly where your vulnerabilities are. That way they can plan an automated attack to attack exactly where you have no idea. And here's a short video around malware attacks.
Malware, or malicious software, is computer code designed to disrupt, disable, or take control of your computer system. It comes in many forms, usually hidden in another file or disguised as a harmless app. It works by taking advantage of technical flaws or vulnerabilities in your hardware, OS, and software. Malware comes in many forms. Ransomware locks infected systems until the victim pays a ransom to unlock it. Credential stealers are used to get usernames and passwords for email and other accounts. Banking Trojans are more specific, targeting your banking usernames and passwords. Keyloggers can record your keystrokes to get passwords, account numbers, and more. Attackers can use a set of software tools called rootkits to get control of your systems. With a cryptocurrency miner, an attacker can take over your computer to generate cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. If you unwittingly install a botnet, your computer can become part of a network of infected systems used to send spam and launch large-scale attacks. To activate, most malware requires a key ingredient: people. Attackers must find ways to trick people into running a malicious file, opening an infected file, or clicking an unsafe web link. That's why stopping malware starts with people. Learn how to protect them at proofpoint.com.
So that was a great video to see how sophisticated malware attacks can be. The Bitcoin aspect of things is going to make everything heighten a lot more as it gets more sophisticated and the criminals get more educated about it. It's a great way, if you're a criminal, to hack, steal without having a trace of where you are or being able to track any type of information. I did realize we do have a few questions in the chat. And we want to address them after the next poll. Okay, perfect. So this next section of the training is about the NIST framework and why it's important. The NIST framework is a government recommended framework that provides a set of desired cybersecurity activities and outcomes using a common language that's easy to understand. The framework guides organizations in managing and reducing their cybersecurity risk in a way that complements an organization's existing cybersecurity and risk management processes. This is a great framework for businesses of all sizes, whether you're technical or not, to understand in very simplistic language what's going on throughout an entire process. It's very useful to prioritize and scope your network. It can create a current profile of your network. It can conduct a risk assessment. You can create a target profile of where you are today and where you want to be. You can determine, analyze, and prioritize gaps. And you can also implement an action plan. The framework is very easy to understand. I very much so highly recommend it. Even if you're not a technology expert, it's a very effective way of communicating information to everyone in your organization. It already has a set of standards to follow and implement and gives you a step-by-step process. There's 5 major steps within this NIST framework. The first one is identify. Identifying is development of organizational understanding to manage cybersecurity risks to systems, people, assets, data, and capabilities. This is one that is a topic and has been very relatable to everything spoke about so far. Protect. Develop, implement appropriate safeguards to ensure delivery of critical services. Detect. Develop and implement appropriate activities to identify the occurrence of a cybersecurity event. Respond. Develop and implement appropriate activities to take action regarding a detected cybersecurity incident. And recover. Develop and implement appropriate activities to maintain plans for resilience and to restore any capabilities or services that were impaired due to a cybersecurity incident. These are great steps to understanding the cybersecurity landscape, how to solve it, how to fix it, and how to get back to operable moments in a fast time. So yes, cyber attacks will happen. There will be leaks. There will be breaches. It's inevitable. But how fast you can stop it, reroute it, and get your business back where it was, that's the most critical component. The NIST framework can help you respond to and contain the impact of an incident if one does occur. The proper detecting, containing, and reporting a cyber incident is a major aspect of this framework. When you have set procedures to follow in event of a data breach, you can respond quickly and reduce risk as much as possible. That is the most important aspect of this NIST framework. As we stated, there will constantly be cyber threats emerging on a day-to-day basis, on a year-to-year basis, and as IoT expands, so does the cyber threats. As time evolves, cyber criminals are getting more educated and have more knowledge on how to execute these attacks. And we have our next poll.
Once again, I'll give you guys 30 seconds and then we'll go to questions in the chat. Three, two, one. Share the results.
Perfect. So all of the following are examples of real security and privacy threats except hackers, virus, spam, worm. We did pretty good on this one as most of you selected spam, which is correct. Again, spam isn't harmful. It's a waste of an email and it's a marketing tool, but it does not have malicious intent. It is not seeking your information. And generally, your email account automatically filters them because they know that it's computer automated marketing to drive sales in another organization.
Okay, Julian, we're going to address some questions that are in the chat.
Perfect.
One of our attendees, Reagan Branch, has posed two questions. Let's start with the first one. She says, my Hotmail account is totally taken over by junk mail and spam. I tried blocking it, but it does not work. Is there any way to salvage this account?
So with that is a separate conversation essentially for each account, because you would generally have to go to that particular company or that particular email thread and unsubscribe. So it is computer automated and computer generated, meaning it spits out because your email has been placed on a spreadsheet pretty much for them to go in and automatically disseminate those. So unfortunately, you could block them and mark it as spam, but you would have to literally do that for each different email that is coming from. So if they create a new email account for that particular marketing, generally they do so that it goes through to your inbox and you can see it. But unfortunately, I have the same problem with my accounts. And once too many marketers get your email address, it's pretty hard to stop it. So unfortunately, not.
Yeah, Julian, I've been there too. And it's really tough because they make that unsubscribe link in the email really, really small.
Yep, at the bottom.
And then you have to follow a bunch of steps to make sure that they take you off their mailing list. All right, her second question. Is a MacBook more secure than a PC for prevention of viruses, etc.? I've actually heard this from a number of Apple users. Is there any truth to this?
So personally, I'm most definitely a huge Apple fan, specifically because of this. Apple is is the most secure provider, where they have clauses where the police department cannot even go into their devices because they're so locked down. They also have built-in hardware, and on their mainframe is security mechanisms that do not allow you to download or put any harmful files. So it's like it's always a system in the background running to make sure that none of these files have malicious content on those. Also, if you want to do something that's dealing with PII, my MacBook personally, I have to put my passcode in to even go to the next page in some instances. Like if I'm on my banking website, it automatically does that. So a MacBook definitely has much more secure built-in principles that are switched on by default. Now PCs are secure as well, but more than likely you have to go into settings and turn or fix the settings to how you want them to be, versus Apple coming that way, and you have to turn some of their security features off so it's user friendly.
Okay, the next question comes from Jenny Erkan. She would like us to elaborate more on the term DOS. It's a new term. And
Okay.
She would like to know more information about it.
No problem. So DOS stands for denial of attack, well, denial of service attack. And it is a cyber attack which the hacker seeks to, so basically the hacker creates a machine to make the network completely unavailable and disrupting the services to the internet. So it's basically kicking you offline, shutting down your connectivity, and while they're online to do whatever they want to do without you having knowledge of it. So that's what it is in a short paragraph. And it's simply accomplished by flooding the targeted machine or resource with a lot of spam emails, essentially, to overload the system and prevent from legitimate requests from being filled. So basically, the denial of service attack is tricking your system to making you think the computer is down when it's actually not. So while you're thinking your computer is down and you may step away, they're running code and putting files on your computer to have a spy going on in the background. But I also am going to be providing definitions to all of these like words that are in the questions or answers. So hackers, virus, spam, worm, DOS was an answer choice for the other one. You will get a copy of what each definition is.
Okay, one last question before we move on. It's from Nieves Chathan Soto. I hope I said that correctly. If identity is compromised within government agency system, what do you suggest to do?
We're actually going to be coming up on the topic for specifically New York, and if data is compromised. So if I could push this question to that so that it comes full circle, but I personally, I would report it to GAO and OMB as soon as possible, so that they could track where it is and track and see what they can do to fix it. But a lot of times, if it is hacked, you're mandated by law to report up to the authorities at OMB.
What's OMB and GAO, just for clarity?
That's a great question. I'm so acronym based right now. So Office of Management Budget is OMB, and GAO is Government Accountability Office.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're gonna push that one off until later on.
Yeah,
thank
so
you for your questions.
Yeah, that one
coming, guys.
Under the SHIELD Act. So moving right along to the SHIELD Act. The SHIELD Act is the Stop Hacks and Improve Electronic Data Security Act, and it's a data security law passed by New York Senate in mid-2019. This law comes in response to an increasing number of high-profile attacks. The SHIELD Act requires employees in possession of New York residents' private information to develop, implement, and maintain reasonable safeguards to protect the security, confidentiality, and integrity of private information. Private information now includes, in addition to, social security number, the driver's license number, credit or debit credit card payment information, or a financial account with a security pin included. Some of these also include biometric information, which is fingerprints, email addresses or corresponding password with security answers and questions, and a financial system that contains financial account numbers without a required security code. All of these fall under the SHIELD Act, which need a special plan in place in case any of this data is leaked. And these are some of the fun facts in regards to the new SHIELD Act, which I recommend everyone read and have a good understanding of the responsibilities that are now being implemented, especially with New York residents' information in New York businesses. They recommend that you have application control, application patching, operating system patching, macro configuration, application hardening, admin privilege restriction, multi-factor authentication, and daily backups. All of these are critical because as data shows, more records have been exposed so far in 2020 than all of 2019. There are many factors of this, but the main factor is remote work. Without being prepared, without your employees having the right cybersecurity practices, without them having the right cybersecurity understanding, all of these play a part into that. With more than 8.4 billion records being exposed in Q1 alone, that's a 273% increase in Q1 from Q1 2019, which saw a $4.1 billion increase, billion record increase within just 1 year. That's showing you how fast this cyber threat landscape is evolving and how much basic information is much needed from everyone on your enterprise to be their layer 1 security. It's estimated that cyber attack damages will hit 6 trillion globally by 2021. 2021 is 4 months away. This law applies to any person or business, even those operating outside of New York, that collect, maintain any kind of New York information. So any type of PII that comes out of New York, that has a resident from New York, a business from New York, has to follow this act, and you will be provided the link to the act with this presentation. This is a brief overview of some of the issues that cyber problems can create. These are obviously very obvious, such as your business shutting down or being put out of operations for an unknown amount of time, which obviously affects your revenue. It also affects your reputation. If a customer is not satisfied and or feels secure shopping with you, they won't. There's enough competition, there's enough e-commerce, there's enough Amazon out there to find a new method. So you want to make sure that, like I said, layer 1 is your employees are aware of all of these risks that we are discussing today at the least. Last but not least, ransomware. Extortion. Bitcoin has become a very much so used methodology to be able to extort you without having any idea who did it and where they are. More than half of the time, they leave your business, they put your business out of business by this being shut down, because they shut down your total operations in request for a certain amount of money or Bitcoin to be sent before you can be backing up to operating. At that point, they have been on your enterprise and network for so long, even if you return back to normal operable momentum, you will still be at risk because you will not know what they have, what information they have. You will pretty much need to start completely over because you had an infiltrator on your network and you had no idea. Now we will talk about some ways to prevent, which is the step 2 of the 5 of the NIST framework. Small businesses today are very much so in risk as much as big companies are. They have gotten the SBA loans. That's money that other people are wanting to steal. They have PII, and they are thinking, or other people know that small businesses have not invested in cybersecurity as much as large business. And sometimes small businesses have access to those large businesses, such as Microsoft Teams. If I created a shared Microsoft Teams account, shared it with Bot Network, gave you guys access to a specific folder that's stored in my database, and I get hacked, that means Bot Network also gets hacked because I have access and you have access to a shared place. So identity access management is critical, very critical to all small businesses. For instance, a director at Bach and an admin assistant. An admin should not have access to all of the databases and files that a director should. That's called proper user management and identity and access management to make sure, hey, if this admin leaves her MacBook or her laptop at Starbucks unlocked, we're okay because she can only access email addresses, which is still a risk, but it's not being able to access financial files, PII. It's totally different. One of the first mechanisms to prevent a cyber attack is cyber risk assessments, which are defined by NIST, are used to identify, estimate, prioritize risk to organizational operations, organizational assets, individuals, other organizations, the nation for government contractors that result from the operation and use of information systems, such as the question that we were asked, what do you do if a government information is leaked? You report up as fast as possible and make them aware. But if you have the proper risk assessments in place, you can most of the time avoid this. Security risk assessment is an important part of a cybersecurity practice. It names, suggests security risk assessment involves the detection and alleviation of a security risk threatening your organization. Security risk assessments aim to measure the security posture of the organization, check whether the organization abides by the compliance requirements and industry frameworks. This is simply running a scan on your devices, on your network, to make sure that you have no vulnerabilities. Like I stated earlier, phishing, malware, vulnerabilities. Those are all placed there to find a vulnerability. If you're running a risk assessment, you will catch that phishing, you will catch that malware attack, you will catch that denial of service attack, and it will prevent you from losing your business. So all of these are very critical. In this way, the cybersecurity professionals within an organization can clearly see the efficiency of the organization's control. It can determine the risk factors, and it can come up with detailed plans and solutions to detect these vulnerabilities for future use. And we're up to the next poll, so please do drop in any questions into the chat.
We're going to do 30 seconds here. Ten more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and share the results.
So what is a program or hardware device that filters the information coming through an internet connection to a network or computer system? Antivirus, cookies, firewall, or cyber safety? 71% of you voted correct, which is firewall. So as I stated earlier, firewall is like a fence around your house. You want to make sure it keeps anything bad out of it. Same thing with the firewall. So any internet connection to a network or computer system, you have to go through a gate. You have to go and unlock it to get in. This is the same thing with the firewall. If it detects any malicious activity, any known vulnerabilities that were detected from your previous risk assessment, now it could be added as a security component to your firewall, and it can be put in as a specific discipline to say, hey, if an email comes from www.jb.com, do not let it to my network, or do not let anyone from my team access it. This is a feature of a firewall that you can use to your maximum ability as a small business. And on that, the next way or recommendation to prevent a cyber attack is firewall. A firewall helps to keep attackers or external threats from getting access to your system. The firewall monitors all network traffic and has the ability to identify and block unwanted traffic. Since most computers these days are connected to the internet, attackers have many opportunities to find victims' computers. This is back to the IoT. Anything that is connected to the internet, that is connected to the Wi-Fi, your router, that is connected to your other device, everything's connected to the internet, and a firewall is a great way to detect and stop this. These attackers probe on other computers to find to find on the internet where the vulnerabilities are to determine what type of attack to administer. Its purpose is to establish the barrier between your internal network and incoming traffic from external networks, such as unknown sources. Two-factor authentication. This is going to be a very much so popular and very much so growing way to prevent a cyber threat, because it stops so much momentum when you can't get past a certain threshold. For instance, if I try to log into Roxanne's email account, she has a security question that I don't know the answer to. That's as far as I can go. I can't get anywhere else. And the great thing about that is Roxanne will also get a notification stating, hey, someone from DC tried to access your email address from this device. This is a great advantage to knowing, hey, someone's out to get my information. Maybe I should go in and change all of my passwords, change my security questions, even let my IT team know, hey, someone's trying to get access to me. Please make sure that we're safe. That way they can run a threat detection test to see where you stand. The primary benefit of multi-factor identification is that it provides additional security by adding another layer. The more layers in place, the more effective this is. A second benefit is being able to achieve necessary compliance requirements benefit to my organization, which turn in mitigating audit findings to avoid potential fines. So it's good practice to have a great cyber hygiene by continuously running threats. They could be expensive, but finding the right package for you and the amount of employees you have is critical to be able to run these tests and understand where your vulnerabilities are, to be able to patch and update your software and platform and your VPN if you have one. And a great example is like Amazon, or another example is like accessing your iPhone to do a lost my iPhone. That's an easy way to understand, hey, I need to input this code to know where my phone is. If not, I can't find it. I can't even access it from my computer that I own if I don't know the password. So it's several benefits to two-factor authentication, especially in this remote environment, and you don't know where your employees are working from. It's a lot harder to track user behavior now because people can work from anywhere. So if I'm in Costa Rica and my IT team sees me in Costa Rica and hadn't confirmed with me because I didn't want them to know, hey, I'm working from Costa Rica, that should pop up as a security threat to your organization to know, hey, either we need to check in with Mr. Burden and see where he is, or we have a problem because someone is on our network from an unusual location. These are always the two-factor authentication is critical because someone from my IT team could simply send me a passcode to my cellular device that I have to input on my computer to unlock it. Therefore, once I do that, I'm good to go. And last but not least, on our threats for today is insider threats. Insider threat is probably the most common type of risk that any organization has. And it's so easy to forget, and it's so easy to do as we all get rushed in a moment. We all have a meeting we're rushing to. We all have emergency phone calls where we, leave our cubicle without locking our computer. We may be in Starbucks, think we're in a safe place. We may have to step outside for a call that we didn't expect, left our computer unlocked. We may also leave our passwords written down in a journal in our office at home in a drawer with no lock on it. That's a threat. We may also make a folder on any of our devices storing passwords. That's a threat. So insider threat is so popular, and it really is damaging to every organization because of all you need is a password sometimes, and it opens up the whole world for you. So an insider threat is posed by an individual at an organization that could have been an employee for you that you didn't deauthorize as you offboarded them. No matter the circumstances, you may have been best friends or you may not have been friends at all. If you don't deauthorize their account, if you don't take their work computer back from them, that's a threat. And a lot of times, this is a spot where big companies really get hit because sometimes they let the employee keep the computer and they also forget to deactivate their account. So that employee now still has access to all of that information as if they still work there. They could be working for a competitor company. They could know a secret about their boss and want to extort their boss for a ransom, which is now very possible with Bitcoin. So it leads to so many different problems that you did not think existed. And more than 2 out of 3 insider threat incidents are caused by negligence. Now we will watch a short video on insider threats.
An insider An insider threat is defined as an attack perpetrated by a user or malicious code that is already inside the defended perimeter of a system or organization. Insider threats are dangerous because oftentimes these attackers know how the system is configured and know its weaknesses. Whereas an external attacker has to breach the firewall and then learn the system, an internal attacker already knows all that information. So everything you know about firewalls and other defenses aren't applicable to defend against an insider. When you think of insider attackers, you often first think of the disgruntled employees. However, along with malicious insiders, both clueless and careless insiders can bring external threats inside. The malicious insider could inflict the following intentional harm within an organization: theft, sabotage, or espionage. Conversely, the clueless or careless insiders expose the company to risk through social engineering, viruses through infected laptops, poor browsing practices that expose the network to malicious code, or stolen equipment and the loss of stored sensitive data. You need to take both internal and external threats into account when creating security solutions. To help protect against insider threats, there are a few best practices you can follow. The principle of least privilege. Ensure that employees have access only to the data they need to do their jobs and nothing more. Proper data governance. Monitor systems to understand where data is coming from, who is accessing information, and how they are using or changing it. Training. For careless insiders, train them to work with security in mind so that they are not unknowingly exposing data or the organization's network. You also need to think about how to respond to insider threats. Are you monitoring logs? Are you logging the right information? Is there a centralized administration module? Does one person in the core of the company have complete control over all your systems? How much do you trust that person? And who is watching the watcher? When it comes to insider threats, you need to think about how you will protect against these malicious insiders, as well as the clueless and the careless.
So I think that was a pretty good video just to give you an overview of what insider threat is and how it can affect your organization and other ways you can realize what it is. In case I didn't hit on any points. So like I said, it's good to watch these little informational videos. They can be very short and to the point, just to keep your brain fresh and, you know, remember certain things. We aren't perfect these days. So next up, we have our next poll.
Once again, everybody, 30 seconds, and then we will address the questions in the chat. Ten seconds. And stop. Here are the results.
Perfect. So viruses are blank: man-made, naturally occurring, machine-made, all of the above. Fun fact about me, as growing up in school, I would always click all of the above. Seems like the most logical answer. But in this case, the correct answer is man-made. Remember when I told you about how attackers on the network are searching for vulnerabilities to see what type of virus they should develop? This is how this is the correct answer. However, machine-made could be marked as an answer, but it's not an answer because that is called denial of attack, and that is not a virus. That's a denial of service attack. That's an attack. It's in its own classification, but that's a good answer choice as well if you want to think about an overall cyber problem. But for this, we're talking about specific viruses, which are man-made. And I did see some questions come in the chat, John.
Yep. Question number 1 comes from Jeannie Polino. She says, I have a Mac. Does that mean I need an antivirus?
So the level of it depends on what you're doing on your Mac, if it's for work or how secure you feel within it. Generally, as the updates roll out for the Macs, such as the iPhones as well, they come with the antivirus built into them. So like I said, the Mac has a lot of house cleaning that comes a part of the mainframe and a part of the server that comes with the Mac. So you could add one on if you would like, if you feel like you have additional risk or you've getting some type of notification. But 9 times out of 10, your MacBook will let you know, hey, you need to remove this file because it contains XYZ, which is a built-in antivirus.
Thank you. The next one comes from what looks to be a husband and wife team. Lee and Justine Williams are asking, it's tempting to use the same password for everything just so you won't forget. I have many passwords, and it's challenging to keep up with them. What do you suggest I do?
So that's a great question. So a lot of recommendations currently have been apps on your device that is similar to your banking. So like if you have a banking app, you have to input a whole new login. It's the same with passwords if you want to keep them in one place. That's the only recommendation that I have. As I know, physical lock boxes can be stolen and broken. So like if you have a little safe with a little lock in your house, you could write them down and put them in there. But I wouldn't recommend that, as that whole safe could be taken and there could be much bigger risk. So right now, with the transformation of technology, we will keep it on the technology aspect, and it's several apps such as 1Password, LastPass, mSecure, Data Vault that you can add through the application store on your device and store anything you want in there. So that's definitely my recommendation. But yes,
Uh,
I agree. It's definitely easy to use the same password across everything, and even save your passwords on your device. That's another topic that comes up a lot. Is I save my password. So on my computer, you can, once you're logged in with your password, and I'm on Google Chrome, which is what I use a lot of the time, you can save your password for certain websites like LinkedIn, your bank, so any social media, Amazon. Amazon actually has a built-in two-factor authentication on most devices if you log in with the saved password anyway. So that's another factor. You know your landscape, you know how you work from home and who's entering your home or wherever you are. But if you're not cyber aware or aware, I would log out of those saved password options. I know it's easy, but it's still a risk if someone gets a hold of your computer or you walk away or you leave it unlocked and they go browsing on your computer. They can have access to everything to every website you saved your password to. That's just food for thought.
Thank you, Julian. I actually have a follow-up to that
Uh-huh.
personally. So in the past year, Google has started to implement something where you don't even have to put in an ID and password. You could log in using your Google account.
Mm-hmm.
Is that safer?
So essentially, it is, but if so, what my main message to that is, if you leave your MacBook open and I come to your house, John, and I'm like, oh, let me get on your computer, I need to check my email, but I go to your bank and see how much money you have, or I could go to your save passwords tab, copy and paste that, and send it to myself and be able to access everything. Luckily, with devices that are Apple, if you go to Save Passwords tab on any device, you have to input your passcode again. So therefore, if you don't have those secondary built-in two-factor identifications, I would take off all saved passwords unless you're not going anywhere in your home. You're in home and no one's going to be there with you.
Yeah, but it's not a saved password. It's so for example, for Zoom, right?
Uh-huh.
You have your login ID and your password for Zoom. But then there's an option with a Google thing. You
Mm-hmm.
click on Google and it says log in with your Gmail. So you click it, then it asks you to log in with your Gmail address, and then you just type in your Gmail. So essentially, I'm just using my Gmail password every time.
Yes, so you're using that same password to give access. But some people have it so super saved to where if you had clicked, so I know what you mean when you click that login as and you clicked your icon for your email
Right,
address, you go to that next page, it should ask for your password.
right.
Some people have the password saved right on that screen as well, where you don't have to manually put it in, and that could be a risk.
Okay. But logging in through Google is safe.
It's definitely safe. Yes, that's one of the more safe platforms.
Awesome. Next question. I don't know if it's a question. Roxanne says, this is great information. Could you give us some knowledge about tools we need to implement for good cyber hygiene practices?
Yeah, I can. So that's a part of the next training. That's for the detect and prevent aspect.
Oh, okay.
I will have some tools and recommendations in there for some of the more popular tools that are being used. A lot of them are software platforms or software as a service where they're running in the background at all times. So mostly be recommendations of other large organizations, but the objective for minority business owned companies is to find op- uh, companies that are small as well that you could work with, that you could afford, because a lot of these bigger companies, the prices are insanely high, to do a lot of simplistic tasks, and they're going to keep driving their prices up for what I would recommend, and it just might not be affordable for a smaller business, or not even affordable. They just may not need the amount of in-depth that comes with their packaging, because a lot of the times they have fixed packages where you can't alter it. So I definitely have that covered in the series.
Thank you. The next question is from Nieves Chantasoto. She says, do you know if I can subscribe to the app Authy, and if I want to add this as a security measure in my login process?
Could you read that again, please? I'm sorry.
It says, do you know if I can subscribe to the app Authy, A-U-T-H-Y?
Mm-hmm.
And if I want to add that as a security measure in my login process?
Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure what type of device he's on, but generally, if it's in the App Store, you can download it to your phone, and then they will give you steps to how you get it on each device. So if he has an Apple shop, like he has an iPad, an Apple phone, a MacBook, once he downloads it on one, he will have to download it on all of his devices, and then obviously it will synchronize once it's on all the devices through the cloud, and he should be able to use. I think that's a two-factor authentication app, and that way it should be on all his devices. So yes, you can run it on the background, unless your MacBook is configured in a way where you have to take it to the Mac store to put in that second layer of two-factor authentication. But usually if it's in the Apple store, if we're talking an Apple product, you can just download it and administer it to all of your devices and use at your leisure.
Okay. Roxanne has another question. Sometimes a corporate partner will alert our small business office that there are systems that have been breached. For example, last year, Target was breached. What do we do when we are informed a partner has been breached?
That's a great question. So the same thing as if you were breached at a personal level, and you got an email from Target, or your bank sends you a new card automatically, because sometimes they keep the customer anonymous, actually, where they would be like, hey, we got a records that your information was compromised. Here's a new card. It's kind of the same thing with your business account, or your business organization. You want to make sure you're running all of the tests in the background. You want to report it up to OMB. If they hadn't, you want to have a discussion with that prime or that larger company to see exactly if they could see what was taken. Normally they can, and they could give you a report on who you should reach out to, and the steps they took to when they realized they were breached. But if this is at a bigger level, definitely report it up to OMB, and then you want to get your IT team sped up to run all the risk and reset some of your software as a service platforms, and patch them from. So you would have to get a detailed report from the large company, obviously, but you would just want to run patches on your platform or your enterprise to patch the areas where they say they got breached and the information that could have been taken from your organization. But it's a very long, complex process.
Thank you, Julian. That is it for those questions.
But yeah, so a fun fact about that, Roxanne, for that question is a lot of our information is already out there. It's just the steps we take to make sure that it's not being used. So the same way you monitor your credit report, that's the same way your organization should monitor their network, and have those practices in place to, hey, someone's trying to, like I said, someone's trying to log in from China. That's not a normal behavior from anyone that we know or anyone on our team. We need to get this sped up. We need to get a patch in place. We need to get them blocked off our network and our access so that it's not further. So it's kind of the same with the breach from your you use your debit card at Walmart was hacked. Your bank sends you a new card. It's just preventative steps like that to try to make sure that they don't get further with your information. And on that, we'll be moving on to key strategies to protect the enterprise. The first strategy is virtual private network, endpoint protection, and identity and access management. On average, it will take a business around 197 days to identify data breach. 197 days to know that someone or your data has been compromised. All businesses, no matter its size or stature, needs to ensure that everyone involved in the company is up to date to the latest cybersecurity threats and best methods for protecting the data. That's following the steps that I've suggested above in the presentation. And the best way to do this is with regular training of staff and using a framework to work towards the key goals for achieving a standard which ensures the risk of data breach is minimal. So that's rules and regulations for your employees, putting guidelines around the devices they use, etc. Cybersecurity's importance is on the rise. Fundamentally, our society is more technologically relevant than ever before. There is no sign that this trend will slow down. So personal data that could result in identity theft is now posted to the public and on our social media accounts. Sensitive information like social security numbers, credit card information, and bank account details are now stored in cloud storage services like Dropbox and Google Drive, which I was referring to earlier, is very safe, and I recommend that you log out, because if your device is compromised and you have a renewable payment methodology on file, or your kids have Xbox Live linked to your Microsoft account, and your credit card information has to be on file in order for it to go through. If you leave your computer, you leave your stored passwords, bam, that is a security risk for you and your company. And a lot of times people use their work laptops and they still find a way to log into their personal emails and those sorts of things to get things done and to show activeness on their computer for their work laptop. Another fun fact, cybercrime costs small and medium businesses over $2 million a year. These costs can come from various mishaps that occur while awake of a cyber attack or vulnerability. That's why it's so important for these vulnerability scans, these identity assessments on who you are as a company and where your data is on a day-to-day basis. So a VPN is very critical in today's society because it is a private network that encrypts and transmits data while it travels from one place to another on the internet. Using a VPN to connect to the internet allows you to surf the web privately and securely, and also gain access to restricted websites, overcoming censorship blocks. So for instance, me, I work from home permanently. In my organization, we have a VPN that we log into before we can access any of our databases across our enterprise. So if I log on this same computer without logging into my VPN, it will be blocked. I will not have access. I will not be able to see certain documents, open certain documents, etc. Without a VPN, the data you send over the internet is out in the open without much protection. Hackers can see the data and in its transit and follow it to follow the IP address. It may affect you directly, and if its exposed data is confidential, it will be critical that you report it as fast as possible. A VPN secures your online activities, again, by encrypting the transmitted data and masking your identity. Identity and access management is another key strategy. This is roles and responsibilities. Roles are critical in this. And it's a framework of business processes and policies and technologies that facilitate the management of electronic and digital identities. This is critical in realizing user activities, user patterns, also hierarchy access. If you're a manager, you have certain access. If you're an associate, you have certain access. If you're a director, and etc. Everyone should not have the same access across the enterprise. And systems used for identity and access management, sign-on systems, and two-factor authentication is a critical way to be able to manage that component. Again, if I'm working from somewhere I'm not normally working, having that two-factor authentication built in on the enterprise is critical. And another caveat to that is a lot of the times these software as a service platforms have a box you can check that says save password for 90 days or save this device for 90 days. That's the critical part where you have to have clear communication with your IT team. A lot of people transform and let people work from home with their box checked. Before you have an update and patch that, you should not have that box checked because that device may have a different user because it's not at your home, it's not at your office network that is used to. It's not at your desk. So I could be anywhere and access John's laptop and log on. The only way that I can be guaranteed as me is by inputting that authentication code. But if I have that box check, hey, save password or save device for a certain amount of days, that's incredible risk to your enterprise. Endpoint security is another one, and it refers to securing endpoints or end user devices like desktop, laptops, and mobile devices. Endpoints serve as a point of access for an enterprise network and can create points of entry that can be exploited by malicious actors. And I can refer to the example I just gave as an example for endpoint security and why it's important to make sure that your team is aware of all the little boxes and easy ways to do things and how it can be a risk. And I cannot have a cyber practice or a cyber webinar without referring to e-commerce. E-commerce is a very, very popular methodology to make money these days. And with COVID-19, it's one of the most booming areas to make money. When your customers have the slightest feelings that their transactions are not secure, they will not hesitate to go to another website. And that leads to a loss of revenue for your business. E-commerce site security is critical for a number of reasons, specifically when it comes to protecting the privacy and sensitive data of a customer while on your website. Safeguarding the finances for an online business, preventing fraud and financial scams, and defending the reputation of an online store is critical. And as you see, some of the good practice and standards and potential threats that you see. So we have payment credit card, backup data, the type of internet connection, such as transport layer security, secure sockets layer, and HTTPS authentication. And you want to use encryption and verified payment methods. And the potential threats include phishing, malware, ransomware, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and e-skimming, and financial frauds, and brute force attacks. So cybersecurity is awareness for individuals. It helps with the confidence of you being on any device, the confidence of knowing things that are risk and knowing things that are putting you at risk is important. And it's great to have that kind of backbone and reference to know, hey, I shouldn't be doing this. That's a threat. Or who is this connected to my network? I now know how to go look at it and see if I have a suspicious actor logged into my network. And another fun fact is 95% of security breaches are due to human error. 95%, that is an incredible amount. And that normally comes from a little click or a little slip of paper with the password written down on it. 38% of global organizations state that they're prepared to handle a sophisticated cyber attack. And worse, as much as 54% of companies say they have experienced one or more attacks in the last month. That is a rising number. And we already know the benefits that help businesses have good cyber hygiene. And the risks that come with not having good cyber hygiene is loss of revenue, reputation damage, loss of clients, operational disruptions, lawsuit, intellectual property, and PII. So all this compromised data all this data needs to be protected from compromise. And we all know the risk. These are a short list and they go much further if you do not have the proper security protocols. And we're coming up on one of our last polls.
Once again, everybody, 30 seconds. And the chat is still open for any questions. Five more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Here are the results of the last poll.
Perfect. So a company requires each company to power off their computer at the end of the day. This rule is implemented to make the network either perform better, more reliable, more error-free, or more secure. 86 of you got the correct answer. It's more secure so that in the background, you don't have attackers attempting to infiltrate your network, infiltrate your background by putting a malware, by putting a virus, by stealing data, by being able to input a smart device, connect to Bluetooth. A lot of these are all risk, and it's very much so good to make sure you turn off that particular device at the end of the day, especially if there's a network patch or an update. It cannot do that without you powering it off or restarting. So I know specifically for my team, we have 3 or 4 young ladies who hold up our patching and updates each time because they don't turn their computer off for weeks at a time, which could become a very big security risk. Performing better is also a component, but not the main reason, but it is a component from the software and the updating aspect. It's definitely a component, but for the point of this poll in this particular session, it's security. And I think there's a chat.
There are questions in the chat. Julian, do you have any more slides?
Yes, I have a few more, so I can address them now or after the slides.
Let's address them now.
Okay.
Roxanne is asking, how can we perform a threat assessment? What is the protocol? Is this something we can implement ourselves, or do we need to hire someone to do this for our small business?
So from a human element threat assessment, you could simply administer a test to see. You can use if you have an IT team, you can have them track their usability for a week to monitor their user activity and how they normally act. You can also send them a survey, such as some questions like this, to let you know what areas your employees or your team are weak, to know where you need to put more money for security and also more money for training to get them all up to speed on what the right practices are. So typically, internally, yes, you could do a test if you have someone who has some knowledge to know what kind of questions to ask and know how to advise. This doing a threat assessment is, for instance, if I formulate a malicious email and I have you send it out to it, or I send it out to everyone on your team at Bach, and you could run the statistic. It could be fake, but you can run the statistics on who clicked on the link, who opened the email, things like that. That's the way to do a human element threat assessment. But from the network side, you definitely have to hire a company to come in and run that assessment, or buy a software as a service to download it to your systems and run it yourself, kind of like an antivirus.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Lee and Justine are saying, after hearing this presentation, our first point of defense is to not have anyone associated not with our company, and I specifically, work at home to log on to my computer as a guest, so they won't have access to any of my information from my login. Would you say this is a good place to start?
100%. Because once they're, like I said, if I went to John's house, or I came to your house, Lee and Justine, and I say, hey, I need to check my email, and I have a flash drive, which no one really uses anymore, I put that into your computer, put whatever attack or virus that I want to put in there, remove that, you have no knowledge of that. So if you must have someone log in, you should log out of your user account name and let them log in as a guest. This is still risky, but it's less risky because they don't have access to that data under your login. But they could still, depending on how good they are, they can still trick your mainframe and put a virus on that actual system.
Thank you, Julian.
I have invested in a guest computer so that, you don't want to mix work and your personal life at all. So if you can, get a small little laptop or PC for people to use, or you can just tell them no.
Nieves, she has another question. What would you suggest to do for cell phones? We usually just lock it and do not turn it off, but some of our email accounts are linked. And then she says, this has been a great presentation and thank you.
Perfect. So yes, for cell phones, they are very self-cleaning. So when Apple rolls out your update, you cut it off. It may be off for 5 to 10 minutes. At that point, everything's updated. Most of us should be on a new iOS 14, I believe now, operating system. So cell phones are a little less stringent as a computer or PC or laptop. But unless you go, so the big risk with a cell phone is if you're at an airport and you plug it in to charge with your USB aspect versus an actual charger block. That is a risk because they can have malware within those USB ports. So that could then transmit on your phone once you're on it actively browsing. There's something or system or virus running in the background, downloading that virus that is placed on this particular USB port. So yes, that's a risk. Any type of insertion to the cell phone, yes, but otherwise it just being locked and laying with no type of connectivity, that's fine.
So what you're saying is never use one of those portable USB ports to charge. Always use a charging block.
Yes, so that I won't say never, but in an area like an airport, unless you're just simply charging it for battery usage and you're not unlocking it, if you want to unlock it, definitely use a block because it has to be unlocked in order to be able to download the malware on the up-to-date devices.
All right. We're going to go a little bit over, but I want Julian to be able to finish his presentation. And then depending on how everyone feels, we might open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, I could get through these last few slides that are pretty quick. It's a lot of information on them. And this section is just the government recommended frameworks and certifications to win government contracts and what they're looking for. These links will also be provided once you guys send out the presentation. So I'll keep this fast. Within the next 5 minutes, we should be done.
Thank you, Julian.
No problem. So as I stated, these are a few frameworks that are highly recommended by the government and what they look for in small businesses when they're making their awards. And there's NIST, the FSMA Act, the FAR, ISO, and CMMI. This is not the complete list. There's not a total handbook depending on what type of opportunities you're trying to win or bid on, but these are some of the most highly touted and sought after certifications. So the FSMA is the Federal Information Security Act. In short, it's a act that any government needs you to have your particular software. So if you're a software development company, your tool has to be regulated through FSMA. It has to get approved through FSMA that it is safe and compliant enough to run on a government system and have government information in that system. So it's just a regulation for all systems and tools that are used in the government. And the best practices are information security inventory, risk categorization, system security plan, and security controls. And this is called FSMA. It's a great one to read into and to read further, especially if you're in government contracting. The FAR. The FAR is just the playbook by which the government abides to make contractor awards. So no illegal activity can be done to win a government contracting award. So everything that they do is followed by this mandated handbook, and it's a great read. There's so many clauses you can reference as a small business, as a minority-owned business, as a woman-owned. There are certain clauses in there that allow you to get direct awards if you're a certain dollar threshold. It's a great Bible for contracting, essentially, is what they call it on in the government, to know all the rules and regulations on how to win a government contract and what the government can and can't do. So ISO, if you're a government contractor, this is one of the certifications you want to highlight and circle, because this is a international organization for standardization. This just shows you that your standards and everything is compliant and of high quality of what you do at your company. So these that are dropping in now: ISO 9000, ISO 2000, ISO 3700, ISO 501. All of these are very critical certifications in winning government contracts. They might not even have these listed in the PWS or statement of work, but if you can reference these, most companies now put these certifications logos on their website. It just makes you stand out in compliance and high quality, knowing that you've been through this rigorous progress with ISO. In the auditing, you pass, everything's compliant. That makes the government feel very safe with allowing you to work with them and become a great partner. CMMI. CMMI is a capability maturity model for integration, and it is a performance improvement framework for competitive organizations that want to achieve high performance operations. So my recommendation is be maturity level 3 or higher. All of these are outsourced certifications where an organization comes in and assess your current landscape of your company and give you recommendations to achieve a certain maturity level. Maturity level 3 is you're proactive rather than reactive. So you're constantly updating, you're constantly improving your processes, you're currently trying to be more innovative, and it's an organizational-wide standard that provides guidance across projects, programs, and portfolios. Having that capability of being at maturity level 3 is a great way to set yourself apart as a government contractor. And it's also healthy if you're not in government to make sure that your frameworks are intact and they are safe, secure, and efficient. And that's it for series 1 of the overview. I hope you got some valuable information. And today we talked about an overview of cybersecurity of today in COVID-19, the importance of security awareness, the top types, the NIST government framework, the SHIELD Act, the top type of cyber attacks for small businesses, some strategies to protect the enterprise, and some government requirements. So next up for series 2, we'll be going into a deep dive of detecting threats and responding to attacks. This will specifically address one of the questions Roxanne asked, so this will be a great series to attend. And last but not least, for series 3, we have the cyber attack in action and the attack recovery. So after you go through this entire series, you will know how to identify attacks. You will have some recommendations for best practices to solve the attacks. And you will also have some recommendations on how to get your company back up and running in a more secure, stable environment. And I just want to thank you for your time today.
Awesome, thank you. I kind of want to open it up to anybody who wants to ask a question. I believe you're able to unmute yourself. We'll give about 2 minutes to allow anybody to do that.
Thank you so much, Julian. This was an excellent presentation covering the basic overview of things that we wanted to know and may have been afraid to ask. So thank you so much for presenting this very useful information, especially now during COVID when we are all becoming more data enabled. Thank you.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Just a friendly reminder to everyone, once you attend all 3, you will get a certification. So that will be great as you move forward in this COVID environment.
It'll be a certification of completion. I believe Lee and Justine have one question, if they want to unmute themselves and ask you themselves.
Okay.
Okay, our son did do the IT certification and under his name, but he's also a part of the company. So if it's a necessity that we have to have certification, would we be covered under him because he works with us, or would we have to get certification as a company?
So you said your son has the ISO certification under your company?
No, not under the company. He just happened to pick the trade, the IT trade, and he did get his certification.
Gotcha. So the ISO is a standalone certification targeted for organizations only, so business only. So if he got maybe a CISSP or Security Plus, that is something you could reference in your company summary or on your company profile, but that's not a certification that certifies, Lee and Justine Williams' company as being certified, just for him.
Okay, so taking this 3-part series, what certification will we be getting that will benefit the company? Will we be getting the ISO, the 900 series?
No,
Is that part of it?
You will receive a certificate of completion, which serves
Just
as kind of like an announcement to your customers that you have done and you're aware of these NIST protocol, that you have certain safeguards in your policy and your handbook that you should put in. And it kind of just will be a training that your team has. It's a certificate of attendance that we will provide from the MBDA.
Okay, so if we wanted to go further, how would we proceed?
So within the presentation, a lot of the stuff I referred to, such as CMMI, ISO, those all are achievable outsourced. So I could either give you guidance on the steps to get those certifications, but through MBDA, that's not a possibility. That's a third party. So like if I recommend any tools in the next series, those will be pretty much like guidance, like, hey, you could contact these service providers, but we don't have any affiliation with them in that sense. Unless you use a small business through our network, then that's a different conversation.
That was a great question, Justine. Does anybody else have any other questions for Julian? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. We will be reaching out soon to let you know about the second and third parts of the series and the dates and invitations to join that as well. I want to thank Julian and Roxanne and all of you for attending today.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone. Hope you had a great time. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
John.
welcome, Jeannie.
The baby's screaming.
Okay. That's what babies do.
When is the next one?
We haven't set the final date yet. We're going to communicate that within the next couple of weeks.
You haven't set the final date yet?
No, we haven't set the final dates yet.
I really like it. And I like all the questions that you guys did it. The
Yeah, it
way
was
that
great.
you guys ask the questions, I really like it.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Jeannie. Have a good night.
Good night. Bye.